Alright, get ready for another exciting review, as this week's Welcome to Mystara is CM8, the Endless Stair. And today's magic word is padding. Can you say padding? I knew you could. Get ready for a not-so-epic quest to find an artifact of overhyped importance while you walk from clue to clue trying to solve a mystery that will quickly find the party going through the motions as they keep going to the fridge to get snacks while you provide copious amounts of exposition for what's essentially a three-scene module. Get ready for the only companion modules you can actually speedrun. I'm Mr. Welch, and this is the Endless Stair. Written in 1987, this is the only Mystara module written by Ed Elminster Greenwood. I'm not adding in the Elminster part, it literally says that in the module. Greenwood, of course, is better known for his work on Forgotten Realms, his only other Mystara work being the Five Shires Gazetteer. The artist is credited as Jack Fred, who I couldn't find anywhere in TSR's library. It turns out Jack Fred was a pseudonym among TSR artists when they rushed a piece of art that they weren't proud of. Kind of like the Alan Smithy of fantasy art. I don't know who for certain who drew the cover art, but it looks a lot like Jeff Easley's work, and he was known to use the Jack Fred moniker from time to time. The interior art was done by Graham Nolan, but there's not a lot of that. The first thing you'll notice when you read the module is how much extra information you are given to eat up the page count. It's a 30-page module, minus 4 pages for interior art, 4 pages for monsters and magic items, a full page of meaningless NPCs that you meet at the prerequisite tavern at the beginning. That leaves 21 pages. But then it goes into 3 pages of detail about the tavern you almost immediately leave to start the adventure, and that's about 18 pages left, and you're starting to creep up on the Veiled Society levels of brevity. And that was a tightly written murder mystery. This is a 3-part race to the MacGuffin. There's 4 parts to the module. One of them is a 2-page walk to the dungeon. You start the game at a tavern when some hunters drag in a dead guy with no marks on him. Cue another murder mystery when one of the hunters that brings in Mr. Dead Guy is found mysteriously deceased a few minutes later. One gripe: when you use an archaic term for the outhouse, define what the term means. Hunter stands up, says, "Me for the Jakes," and walks off. Then Greenwood never says what the hell does the Jakes even mean. You have to read the module to get a understanding of what the Jakes is. It's the privy. It doesn't appear anywhere in the module for the definition, and even it doesn't appear in my physical copy of Webster's Dictionary, so unless you're familiar with archaic terms for the loo, you're going to confuse people. Another gripe, this one's slightly less specific. There's 3 pages devoted to this inn. The entire plot regarding this scene is wrapped up in about a page of writing. Art takes up about half a page. Then you've got a page and a half of some rather specific information on an extremely generic inn. Greenwood tells you what bird is in a painting in a room you have no reason to enter. It has no impact on the story and it contains nothing of interest. But you can find out what's in the bathroom, how many mules are in the stables, and even though the party by this time is chasing after the clues given by the magic amulet on the first dead guy, you can interview every single person in the module even though they have nothing else to add. The wilderness encounters aren't really encounters, just locations where you might find something interesting. A hermit's shack and some random clearings don't really make for good encounters. It suggests you use the wandering monster charge you want to add into some encounters. Another gripe, every single bit of dialogue in this game that's pre-written is in a box to make it easy to read. Until you get to the minstrel, it gives you the entire history of the Endless Stair that you're chasing after, and that dialogue is shoved into the description of the encounter. It makes for a really difficult read as it just bleeds in with the rest of the words. So you get to the dungeon where you find the clue to find the second dungeon. And it's a pretty lackluster dungeon with some minor scripted encounters, including fighting a single Sturge. Seriously, one Sturge. A 6 hit point monster that might threaten a new character, but you're all 15th level minimum. It's about as threatening as a mosquito at this point. There's only one other scripted combat encounter, and it's with a much tougher monster, but not so much to make the party actually think it's in some sort of danger. Then you get to the glory that is Arton. He's a platinum golem whose only job is to answer your questions, and he answers all the questions. A full page is devoted to this walking exposition monster. You can't harm him and he won't attack. Well, you can harm him, but he nukes himself if you try. He gives you the background of this module, and oh my god, is it a lot of background. So you get the clue, and you finally get to the Endless Stair, and you climb. Random things attack you or try to knock you off the stairs as you go, but 30 stories later you reach the secret lair of the Seat of Power. It's a pretty tiny dungeon with a guardian hand, a spellcasting magical hand that's literally a page of rules attached to it. You find the library, which is a half a dozen or so spell books, then you find the Seat of Power, where the big bad you haven't met attacks you to take it away. The DM is encouraged to give him some minions, so it's not just one wizard against a high-level party of characters. And seriously, this is back in the day where casting a silence 15-foot radius on a rock and throwing it at the feet of a wizard was a legit tactic. The Wizards of Apprentices should have worn down the party by now, but there really isn't anything that could threaten the party at all in this module. You have to create combat encounters along the way. This is going to be nothing more than a stroll in the countryside. The module doesn't even feel incomplete. It feels like a bunch of ideas for the first part of an adventure. One man-scorpion isn't going to slow down an extremely high-level party like the module calls for. The Sturge says it will flee when badly hurt, but one hit from anybody in the party is going to plaster that thing all over the walls. There's a little conflict in the module. The plot is half stolen straight out of the treasure island, and the end of the module ends up with the party holding onto an artifact of supposedly legendary power, but no way to defend it. There are so many words in this book, if you took out half the adjectives, I think it would cut the page count by half. So much of the book describes stuff to the DM that doesn't matter to the players. Who cares if the small animal bones you find scattered around the areas are voles or squirrels? Do we really need to know the content of every single room in the tavern once the party has been given its quest? You've got monsters in the new monster section that have longer descriptions than dragons do in the rule book. The module is so caught up in minutiae it forgets to tell a good story. If you want to throw this into a campaign, make it part of the Nora world cycle. It's supposed to be placed somewhere near Glantry, but you can put it anywhere without any effort. This is barely a side quest for a better module. You can just change the difficulty of the bad guy slightly, and the module suddenly becomes a basic level module. The treasure's meh, the artifact can't be moved, and the NPC backgrounds seem to be a writing excuse rather than a reason for villainy. If you want to pick this thing up, it's $40 secondhand. You can get it for half that if you're patient on eBay. Get the PDF instead. It's $5. You can print it out. The module isn't worth $40 unless you're a collector. You're not going to keep the players involved into the module for long. It's filled with recycled plots, railroaded adventures, and very little to keep the players actually contesting the big bads. That's the Endless Stair. It's not a good module. It's very lackluster and really doesn't challenge the party. Nothing stands out. Nothing is memorable. I guess there's a reason why Easley didn't want his name attached on this thing. So that's all I'm going to say about it. Next week I'm going to finish off the companion modules with CM8, Legacy of Blood. This is a true companion level module, so you're trying to turn around the fortunes of a failing domain. So until next week, seriously, who throws a single Sturge at a 15th level party?